Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Bold Explorer Live. Very nice of you to join me. It's so nice to have the internet. I had not had the internet over the weekend, so I've forgotten what it's like. I've been reading books mostly, but I have been out with the lovely Julia today to create another video for tomorrow, which is all ready. And amazingly managed to get the video today a little bit late, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Big thanks to the lovely Julia for letting me nip over and use her internet at 9 o'clock this morning. So anyway, here we are. Let's say hello to a few people. Hello to Mike Stevens, who found the internet again. Yeah, I put it down and I couldn't remember where it was. I thought it was in one of my filing cabinet drawers. Is it still in there? Yes, it's still in there. The lovely Julia, hello to you. Hope you're well. Turbo Stream, just checking in to say I'll be watching later, currently down in Malvern for a walk over the hills. How lovely. Hoping we'll get a vid out of it for the Vogue show. Top banana. Looking forward to that then. Mark Donny McLeod. Oh, look, a new screen outlay. A new screen outlay. Good to know you're back in the land of almost the living. Good afternoon. I'm watching from my phone in a tent in North Yorkshire. I hope to add soon. Oh, watching from a tent. How amazing. Right. Well, actually, it's a hammock. A tent over a hammock. Okay. I'll go with that. Steve G, hello to you. Linda Kane, hi all. Good to see BT eventually got their finger out. Yes, I should think the whole of my road is quite happy. Hello to Michael Angel, to Helen Slater, and nay worries, and no need to apologise, says Morton Lewis. Show you found a shilling for the meter then. I did indeed. It's not so easy to find shillings these days. They're willing if they're a good shilling. And Graham Roffey says, hi, went to work today. First time since March. Gosh, how did that go? Nice to see you back here, though. Skiving off for a little bit of the old Voby One-Eyed Kenobi. Marvellous, that's what we like to hear. Oh, been working at home. Fair enough. Right, we are in search of England. I'm in search of a focus through my glass eyes. What I should do, I should try and find the next book with the text online, because I just suddenly thought, I wonder if one could read the text off the monitor. I wouldn't have to keep looking down here and peering over my glasses like some poor old doodah. Anyway, in search of England is what we're up to. Thank you very much for coming along. I'm going to try, I don't know how I'm going to read this. I might try to read it off like that. I don't know. Oh, maybe that's good. Maybe that's better. I did have a thing. Can't find it now. A thing, you know what a thing is. I had one of those things. Right, here we go. In search of England, HV Morton. We are on, can't remember what chapter, but I think still chapter 2. Helen Slater says, hello. Did hear about the section of Portsmouth to Arundel Canal at Barnham Court Farm in West Sussex. Did you hear about it? What? No. What about it? I didn't. Be interested to know. What? Are they going to are they digging it up? Very useful things. Yes, I had a thing. I had a blooming thing. It was a red one as well. I don't know what happened. Don't know what happened to my thing. Anyway, greetings from East Preston, land of beans on toast, says Bradshaw's Guides. Perfect. First, as I have never been able entirely to conquer the belief that women are in all situations honest. All men I suspect, all women I trust, for I believe in living dangerously. Not quite sure what he's getting at there. In Christchurch, near the Priory, is a short, narrow street full of tea shops. It's... Oh, there's a little bit of a bridge. Thank you. That's nice. In Christchurch, near the Priory, is a short, narrow street of tea shops. It's so full of tea shops that several charming waitresses and proprietoresses for this street seems entirely a feminine endeavour, picket the doors and say with a smile, if you appear to linger bunwards, "Oh, would you like some tea?" And you think, "Oh, probably I would." And so you become deflected from the Priory. Goodness alone knows how many religious pilgrims have been lured to repletion in this street of the sirens. I was walking on with a good soulful of Norman transepts when a maiden stood before me and looked. She had the greyest eyes. "Would you," she said, "like a lobster?" I observed her closely and realised that she was serious. Behind her lay in negligent attitudes dozens of lobsters on a table among roses. It was 4:30 p.m. It had never occurred to me that people eat lobster at tea time. In fact, there is to my mind something almost indecent about it. I was so embarrassed that I said yes, whereupon, giving me no attempt to repent, in the manner of women, she picked up a big scarlet brute and disappeared, leaving me to sink miserably into a chintz chair with a clammy foreboding of great evil. "Tea?" she asked. I made the feeble protest, but she assured me that China tea goes with lobster. I wanted to ask whether this experiment had ever been tried before by man, but I was given no time. When the shell was empty, some devil entered into me and urged me to reply yes to everything the girl said, and she was a good talker, with the result that basins of Dorset creams, pots of jam, puffy cakes oozing sweetness, ramparts of buns, and crisp rolls came piled up behind the rose bowl. The only thing I missed at this tea party was the Mad Hatter. "We are of London hear stories." Wait, what? Oh, we of London hear stories of Welsh country excess, of creamy dawns and jammy eves. Was this, I reflected, an unofficial welcome to Dorset and Devon? I looked round to ask the hovering one, but she was outside, luring a curate with a I don't know what that is, a Langosetti. It wasn't a Lamborghini, that much is true. I stood up heavily and strode out up the green avenue to the ancient Priory, feeling somewhat ashamed of myself. Quite right, too. Lobster and Dorset cream are not the right food for pilgrims. I believe the Crusades could have been stopped by a Devonshire tea. I found myself mooning round the Priory, wondering stupidly while they called it the richest, the most unpleasant word, Norman nave in England. In one of the transepts, which are the poorest part of this lovely building, I found an elderly verger named Mr. Hyde, who has for the last 37 years been the custodian of Christchurch. He made me forget the orgy inside the street. As we walked round together, he revived my enthusiasm for life. I discovered that during his career he has, so to speak, collected royalties of distinguished people. Half the crowned heads of Europe have visited this remote corner of Hampshire. In an old visitor's book, he showed me the signature of the Kaiser in letters 2 inches high, and beneath it the name of Louis Raymakers. An interesting juxtaposition. How on earth did a warlord and the man who is destined to do him so much harm with a pencil manage to sign the same page? It was like this, explained Mr. Hyde. In 1907, the ex-Kaiser, who was staying at the Highcliffe Castle near here, came with his suite. Every now and then the Kaiser would make some remark and turn to each member of the suite and ask if he agreed with him, and the answer was always yes. He was interested in the curious carving of the choir under the Miseries. One represents Richard III crowned. On either side, the devil and the devil on a woolsack, which I explained to him was a satire on the Lord Chancellor of the period. And the Kaiser turned to Prince von Berlow, then Chancellor of Germany, and repeated what I'd said, adding some personal remark, for they both laughed heartily. The Kaiser then signed the visitor's book and said that he would hope to come again. It would be interesting, reflected Mr. Hyde slyly, to know what kind of a visit he had in mind, for he signed his name in English. That was in 1907. During the war, a man came here and noticed the Kaiser's signature. He took out a pen. "If I might," he said, "I'd like to put my autograph close to his, because he is a friend of mine and knows me very well." I was curious. It was not the usual for anyone to claim friendship with the Kaiser during war, so I allowed him to do it. He wrote Louis Raymakers, and there it is. Can anyone tell me who Louis Raymakers is? Is he a famous person? We examined the lepers' squint in a small chapel set apart for these poor outcasts of the Middle Ages, so that they might see the priest elevate the host. Cheers. I've elevated my cup of coffee. When the King and Queen of Norway visited the church in 1887, said Mr. Hyde, they were very interested in this. The King told me that his people were today suffering from a similar disease. He thought it must be the same kind of complaint. He knew that Christchurch is noted for salmon, and no doubt it was a common food in the district in the Middle Ages, and was the cause of a skin disease mistaken for leprosy. At the back of the Priory, on the way down to the River Stour, I found one of the most delicious lanes I have seen in Hampshire. The trees formed a green gloom over it, and there were weathered grey stones and long green grass. On the way back, though, the narrow on the way through, not a though, on the way through, there's an R, it makes all the difference. On the way back through the narrow street, a maiden stood before me and looked. She had the greyest eyes. "Would you," she said, "like a lobster?" I saw that she was still serious, and so was I, and I passed down the street looking neither to creamy left or jammy right. "Would you like a lobster?" I think one can only have one lobster. And I don't like lobster. I don't like any kind of fish. Let's have a look, see what Bradshaw's Guides. Money, no West Sussex. There are 7 wonders here. I don't know what that's about. Let's just find out. That's intriguing. Hang on a minute. Just a minute. Did you hear about the section of Portsmouth and Arundel? No, they're putting a bridge on it. Oh, are they? There's a little bit of a bridge. Marvellous. Afternoon, Captain Turbo. East Preston, near Chorley. I don't think it's near Chorley. Love a good tea shop, says Graham. Bradshaw's, 7 wonders. Julia says, I think this is a different Turbo. Ah, right. Who, pray, is the negligent What, pray, is a negligent posture, especially with reference to lobsters? Yes, lobsters in a negligent I can't speak, let alone read. Ramparts of buns. Yes, yummy. How about that? Slurp, jam, cream first, answers on a postcard. Oh, here we go. Don't start that one again. Julia, yes, I've just twigged. Ed Loud, hello to you. Going to watch later. Just wanted to say hello. Hope you're all well. Richard, always enjoy your reading. Looking forward to listening later. Top man. Okie dokie. Anyway, on it goes. Did anyone find out who this bloke was? Can't even remember what his name was. Oh, Louis Rainmaker. There we go. Was a Dutch painter. An editorial cartoonist for the Amsterdam newspaper Die Telegraaf during the war. Ah, okay. Hence the pencil, then. Noted for his anti-German stance. All right, thank you, Linda. And Linda Kane says, I bought a dressed crab only this morning. What was it dressed in? Was it in a black tie? I'd like to see a lobster in black tie. Right, let's continue. In the chill morning before sunrise, I took the road out of Salisbury and made for Stonehenge. Inexpressibly remote, those great stones seemed, standing up there in the faint light that was not the light of moon or sun, but a spectral half-light that comes before the day, and I was reminded of Egypt. This is in the prehistoric circle that the same carelessness for human labour that underlies the gigantic works of Egypt. It is not, I think, known how these men built Stonehenge, why they built it, or whether the stones were carried from Wales or Brittany. But that does not lessen the grandeur of the effect, for they worked with their naked hands. Oh, my hands are naked! Quick, dress them! Black tie for you. But Stonehenge, unlike Egypt, is dead. I would sleep on the high altar without a tremor, but there is not one temple in Thebes in which a man would not be haunted. How impossible is it to feel any sympathy or understanding for the distant builders of Stonehenge? It's a gloomy temple. One feels that horrible rites were performed there, even more terrible, perhaps, than the burning of pretty Berkeley Square ladies in wickerwork cages as depicted by the Victorians. What? Stonehenge is like a symbol of all the dark beliefs at the root of ancient theology. There is a fitting sanctuary for the Golden Bough. Well, of course, everybody knows that Stonehenge was actually just the landing pad of a flying saucer, don't they? That's what it was. I'm sure it was. Even so, it's lifeless. The ghost of the priest king has been laid long ago. The wind whistles mournfully between the monoliths, and the sheep crop the grass on the ancient burrows which lie in the shadow of the dead temple. The sun rose. A thin streamer of pink light lay across the east. The stones were jet black against the sky. The grey clouds that had so recently moved across the stars now caught fire and became gold arrows in the heavens. The light grew second by second. The pink turned to a dull red, then to mauve. A veritable furnace of light blazed up above it, and in the midst of this the sun came over Salisbury Plain. I was going back over Lark Hill of many memories. I stopped my car and got out, waiting. There was not long to wait. There it came, silver clear in the morning, a bugle playing Reveille. How strange it seemed to be, standing there, a free man, listening to Reveille on the plain. Away from Bulford, they were playing the same call. How the whole plain rang with distant bugles during the war. I thought I caught the sound of the cavalry reverie from Netheravon, but that must have been my imagination, I think, even on a windless morning. I looked over the smooth sweep of the down, remembering so many mornings just like this, recalling to my mind so many good fellows, so many bad days. How sharp the air was before breakfast, the sound of hard boots on cobbles, the smell of stables, the feel of riding a horse bareback at morning exercise over the basket jumps. I went back thoughtfully into Salisbury. Salisbury is, I imagine, the only example in England of a town established upon a hill which suddenly packed up, lock, stock and barrel, and marched into the plain to begin again. When the Romans came, they fortified the hill known as Old Sarum, and called it Soroboiodianum. I'm sorry I asked. The Britons seem to have shortened it into something like Serum. The Saxons conquered it, gave it the name of Salisbury, as if it were the burh founded by Seir, and the Normans corrupted it to Salisbury Rig, from which it's a short step to Salisbury. Yes, quite a short step. What adventures words can encounter in a few centuries of invasion. Should have asked Philip Mercer, he would have given you a better name. I wandered about the ruins of this first Salisbury, prodding the earth with a stick in the hope of finding a piece of that shining Simeon pottery, which, on the most unlikely looking dunghills all over the world, proclaims the presence of Rome. But there was nothing. Why did the people of old Sarum march into the plain? History says there was a difference between the soldiers and the church, which reached a climax one cold wintry night when the monks, returning from a Rogation Tide procession, discovered themselves locked out of their church. "Let us," said one of the canons, "in God's name, descend into the level. There are rich campaigns and fertile valleys abounding in the fruits of the earth, and profusely watered by the streams. There is a seat for the Virgin Patroness of our church, to whom the whole world cannot afford a parallel. If you know what I've just said, then you are more stupider than I, for I have not a clue what gibberish is coming out of my mouth." I like an old story. I like the old story, which says that Bishop Poor, who led the descent into the plain in 1219, ordered an arrow to be shot from the heights of Old Sarum into the valley below, and where it fell he built Salisbury Cathedral of today, which obviously is utter nonsense, because they would have wanted somewhere that had at least some sort of grounding and wouldn't let the thing have subsidence. Most ridiculous idea. You cannot help feeling, as you explore the mounds of the ruined city of Sarum, or Sarum, I don't know how you pronounce it, that overcrowding and the lack of good water supply must also have entered into the question. The hill was probably adequate for a camp and a small Saxon stronghold, but when the first cathedral and its outbuildings rose up, what room could there have been for anything else? Salisbury is surely the most peaceful cathedral city in England. No, not if you try driving around it on the A36, it isn't. It seems that all its tragedy was packed into the history of Old Sarum, and with its removal into the valley came a delicious uneventfulness. Well, what about if you go there and get a bit of Russian poisoning? Yeah, I forget what they call that. What was it, Nokachov or something? I like to go out some few miles and look down on Salisbury, its thin spire, the finest in all England, rising from the plain, the smoke of its chimney throwing a faint blue mist over the city. It is one of the cosiest English views. It is interesting, too, to note that Bishop Poor anticipated American town planning. The streets of Salisbury do not wind like a number of glorified village lanes do like most streets of medieval towns. Was the bishop originally in this, or did some memory of the Roman camp linger in Old Sarum? Who knows? I had two great monasteries. No, he didn't. I had two great moments in Salisbury. It was market day. The cattle market was loud and mooing and bleating. Country gigs stood in the square, and over the pens leaned the burly, red-faced Wiltshire farmers. "Hello there, I'm a Wiltshire farmer, I'm happy as can be. I'm sitting on the self there, having a mug of tea. And look at the cows in the field, don't they look so nice? I can't think of a rhyme that goes with just as well in a trice." Thank you. The other moment, it was the evening, and the sun was setting behind the cathedral. In what walled close, I can't read. In what walled close, nothing it seemed would ever. In that walled close, Nothing, it seemed, would ever hurt. The soft green grass, the mighty church pointing its slim finger to the sky, the old grey whistle test, no it wasn't, cloistered buildings dedicated to centuries of peace. I went inside. It is not to my mind one of the loveliest of our cathedrals. You've just said it was lovely, beautiful, and what with its wispy thin spire. Make your mind up, man. I went inside. It is not to my mind one of the... Shush. Is that my son? Hey, Dad, is any chance that the internet is back? It's my son. They've gone out. It's probably gone round to a mate's house. It's probably round a mate's house using their internet because he couldn't bear to read a book. Yes. It's back, but I'm using it. I'm catching up. You can't have it. Blooming cheek. Kids, eh? Kids. Oh, where are we? Oh, yes. Right, here we go. It's not in my mind. Oh, let's do that again. It's not in my mind one of the loveliest of our cathedral. It's what? But it is one of the most chastely dignified. It sings on the same note. Ah. That might have been a couple of notes, actually. Where the hell am I? Ah, fill it is with a song it sings on the... St. Paul's in London, Truro Cathedral and Salisbury Cathedral stand alone, I think, as a work of one generation. A little whisper of organ music lost itself in the grey arches. Where are you? Over here. When it was dark, I visited the old inns of Salisbury and walked through quiet streets, which are the streets of Barchester. Did Henry Williamson write this chapter? Anyway, so another slurp of the old gin and whiskey. Salisbury Cathedral has extremely shallow foundations, only 28 inches, says Ronald. Ronald wrote, I'm sorry, words are not my forte, by the way. I don't know why I started to do this reading lark. I love reading, but for some reason I can't actually do it. It's one of those skills that you have to go to university and have your life drummed out of you. I can't seem to do it. I don't know what's the matter with me. There is something about Weymouth that suggests a big travelling carriage swinging along between the sand hills near the sea. The positions with dust on their... The postilions... It's very tiny writing, this. The postilions with dust on... I'm just blaming anything other than me. The postilions with dust on their eyebrows, the wigs awry, the horses in a lather... And inside, against the cushions, His Majesty King George III, very ill and tired, trying to forget the word wig, hoping that there will be Dorset dumpling for dinner. I just hope there's Dorset dumpling for dinner, my dear. Just hope there is. Dorset dumpling, dear. Yes. No, don't show me those. I want the Dorset dumplings. Thank you. Put them away. We'll have blancmange later. Weymouth has not yet recovered from the surprise that George III discovered it as a health resort. It looks patchily Georgian, as if trying to live up to the ugly statue of that monarch on the front. You cannot, if the statue is still there, of course, it's probably been pulled down. You cannot be here for more than 10 minutes without hearing something about George III, and I rather like this about Weymouth, in a word of short memories. The hotel lounge, which has a loudspeaker...
OK, come in now, please. You can have your dinners, thank you.
It has a loudspeaker. I've lost my space. Keep looking. Where the hell did you put your space? There's no space between the words. That's the trouble. It has a loudspeaker and many naval officers dotted about it. Was once the reception room of Gloucester House, the royal residence, and I am told that many important cabinet meetings have been held there. In the garden is something that looks like a stone coffin. They tell me it is the bath of George III. Weymouth has no museum, so they have put the king's bath in the garden where the sparrows can enjoy it. Weymouth is rich in natural endowments, and it could, if it cared to forfeit its air of happy reminiscence, become either a Margate, oh, for God's sake, don't be a Margate, or a Bournemouth, oh, heaven forbid. Of course, it is much more delightful in its present state of indecision. On a sunny day, its bay really has a look of Naples. I could never tire of the harbour where the ironclads lie at anchor. Blimey. And just out at sea, vague and mysterious in mist, queerly impressive in sunlight, is a great mountain of stone, sacred to all who love London, the strange Isle of Portland, the most interesting spot I have yet discovered, and the least written of. But to return to George III. Fanny Burney, whose diary I've been rereading in bed, as you do, was one of Queen Charlotte's maids of honour when the king went to Weymouth in search of rest. Precious little rest for the poor man was found. All George III wanted to do, I take it, was to potter around quietly, throw a few stones at the sea, take walks with his humdrum family, and find out the recipe for Dorset dumplings, please. That loyalty, however, which blinded England to the comedy of the Hanoverian succession, went right to the head of the natives. It must be terrible to be king. Every time he broke cover, they gave tongue, and he could seldom escape from the national anthem. It followed him even to the sea. Fanny Burney's description of His Majesty's first bath makes me smile. "They have," she said, "dressed out every street with labels, 'God save the King.' The bathing machines make it in their motto all over the window, and those bathers that belong to the Royal Dippers wear it in bandeaus on their bonnets and go into the sea, and have it again in large letters around their waists to encounter the waves. Think of the surprise of His Majesty when, first time of his bathing, he had no sooner popped his royal head under the water than a band of music, concealed in a neighbouring machine, struck up 'God save great George our King, God save our gracious King, he in Weymouth, da 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 da, God,' and so on. You can probably picture the rest. There was another sensation when the mayor came to present an address of welcome to His Majesty. He'd been told to kneel, taking the kneel, of course, was being done then before Black Lives Matter. But at the critical moment, and to the astonishment of all present, he stood up and said, "Isn't it a Marxist organisation, this? I'm sure they want to defund the police and get rid of the nuclear family." But of course he was stark raving mad, so what did he know? What the recipe for plum puddings? Dorset puddings. Nice plums, by the way, madam. Thank you. Yes. He knelt. What was it? There was a sensation. He'd been told to kneel at the critical moment, and to the astonishment of all present, he remained standing and took the royal hand in the common way. "You should have knelt, sir," he was told by an outraged equerry doc. The mouse ran up the clock. I don't know what an equerry is. Some knob, I imagine. "Sir," answered the mayor, "I cannot." "Everyone does, sir." "Sir," said the mayor, "I have a wooden leg." One of the most impressive seascapes in England is, I imagine, that of Chesil Beach, a bank, from the high western end of Portland. The Chesil Bank is unique. It is, with the exception perhaps of a beach on the Baltic, the longest pebble beach in Europe. For 17 miles, the sea has flung up a great barrier of pebbles, which varies in height from 50 to 60 feet. And as the beach goes west, so the pebbles, according to the action of the currents, become smaller and rounder. Fishermen tell me that if they land on the Chesil Bank in a fog, they know exactly what part they have struck when they examine the shape and size of the stones. We seem to be on the left bank. Do 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 do. The left bank, the Novatones. Oh, never mind. Dum ba dum ba dum da dum dum. I'm sorry, but we cannot return any of your pictures because of 5G. Do 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 do. It was a sunny day as I stood on the heights of Portland and looked west towards Bridport. The bank was like a thin gold crescent at the edge of an intensely blue sea. There was a fine white line of foam edging the gold, and then the broad blue water streaked across with pale green streamers making currents. Not raisins. Against the sky, perfecting this lovely bird's eye view, lay the green downs with gold clouds slowly sailing up over the edge of the horizon. Quite near Weymouth is a wishing well at a place called Upwe.
Up we go!
It lies behind a farm gate tucked away at the edge of a wood. The water bubbles up, ice cold with ancient moss-covered masonry. And I imagine that the Georgians, those great spar finders, believed that it had healing properties. Well, they've all got healing properties, haven't they? You dip your heels into them and you turn into Achilles. That's what I understand. A girl who seemed to be in charge of the magic waters dipped a cup for me and said, all in one breath,
Turn your back on the wishing well, wish and take a drink, and throw what's left back into the well over your shoulder, and then your wish will come true.
Are you sure? I asked. She looked alarmed, as though she might be asked to sign a guarantee.
George III used to drink it,
she replied sturdily. I hope I did that sturdily enough for you. And did his wishes come true?
I don't know,
she said, very confused and pink. Obviously she wasn't there at the time. How could she possibly know? So I wished and drank and threw the water what was left over. Sadly, it splashed her in the face, and she got hold of her litigation partner, and they duffed me up. A few natives gathered around, but they were all dumb, with exception of one woman. The king, when he was Prince of Wales, once had a wish here, she said. And what did he wish?
He wouldn't tell us. An old man lives down in the village. An old man who lives down in the village shouted out, What are you wishing for, a beautiful princess?
But he wouldn't tell us. They all smiled at the recollection of the old man's audacity, and I passed through the farm gate to the main road and so back to Georgetown. Here's something of a weird morning this afternoon. No Dorset knobs. What a shame. No Dorset knobs. Dumplings. Nice. Just in case you thought I was lowering the tone, a Dorset knob is a hardy, dry, savoury biscuit which is now produced by the only single producer for a limited time of a year. Hard as a rock. Like rock cakes, I suppose. Lady Pandora said, I'd just come across you whilst looking for derelict goodness in Cornwall. Loving your video. Thank you so much. You've just found a derelict bald man, unfortunately. I do apologise for that. Morton says, Richard is a terrible snob. He doesn't like the proles. Margate. No, don't like Margate. That funny woman who refused to make her bed came from there. Just refused, point blank. I would have put her over my knee and spanked her. Weymouth does not have a museum. I thought it did, said Mark Donny MacLeod. He said, when was this book written? This was written in 2019. Oh, 1925, I think. 1925, something like that. Dorchester does. It was where the plague came to the UK. What? From the museum? Gosh, don't go into a museum if that's where you are plagued with all sorts of nasty things. Dorset dumplings, says Ben Reeve, are steam apple cakes, dumplings with rum, butter and demerara sugar. Locally we have Buckinghamshire badger. Nice. I know her sister, Sweet Fanny Adams, says Michael Angel, and in Sussex we have pond pudding. Don't sound like the sound of that. Pond pudding, thanks Linda. Eccles, he's fallen in the water. He's fallen in the water! Double entendres are downed. Dorset knobs hard as a rock. My phone net is a bit weird. Love Lady Pandora in search of derelict goodness. Have that in abundance here in Madrid. Losing the internet must be catching. I just lost mine there for a couple of minutes. Don't worry, I probably phased in and out. How are we doing on the time? 40. Right, let's see what we got here. Enough to do a little bit. One more little section, I think, and then I will go and rest my wearied head. That, said the quarry foreman as he included the landscape in a sweep of his hand, is where St. Paul came from. That. I looked down toward the sea from the high cliff on the eastern side of the Isle of Portland. I saw a valley gouged out of the hillside, a dead, desolate wilderness, a cutting away of high stone cliffs, as if some race of giants had scooped out the stone to its bed, leaving exposed the grey, jagged roots of the rock, now covered here and there with grass and wild flowers. The foreman turned, pointing downwards, towards a cosy bay that lay between steep cliffs with waves breaking on the shingle beach. Some of the city churches came out of that great hole. All these quarries on the east side were worked by Sir Christopher Wren when he rebuilt London. We often find stones quarried in his time and bearing his mark, but rejected for some reason, and he never shipped them to London. Look, this old pillar is said to have been cut for St. Paul's Cathedral, but it never got there. I turned to look at the grey pillar that might have stood on Ludgate Hill, lying covered in brambles that clung closely, as if trying to console itself for its failure. We walked on together over roads so white with powdered Portland stone that the dust clung like flour to our clothes and formed a grey film on our hands. My guide pointed to a long gash in the rock. "The cenotaph," he remarked casually. I didn't really do that very casually, did I? "Oh, the cenotaph." We went on. "I helped to choose some of the stones for the cenotaph," he continued. "The top ones with the wreath on them. We picked the purest white stone in the land, hoping that some rascal in the future would start to squirt aerosols all over it." Particularly the racist word. We came at length to a quarry near the sea in which men were cutting Portland stone. They worked below on stone ledges, driving iron bars beneath the stratum, for Portland stone lies in convenient layers. A crane dropped a chain into the quarry. It was attached to the iron wedges. Then a crane worked, pulling at the bars till the stone broke into a rough, square slab. On top of the quarry, men were shaping these slabs, huge, creamy slabs. Portland stone is not white until it has weathered, and as you can prove for yourself in the Strand any day by comparing New Bush House with ancient Somerset House. Someday Bush House will lose its look of sunburn and grey down to the silver monotone of London. "Where is all this stone going?" I asked the foreman as we passed between walls of it. "That," he replied, "is Regent Street." Apart from their sentimental interest to all Londoners, the Portland quarries are strange places in which to prowl. You can look at the hillside and see plain as in an architect's sectional plan the strata of which the island is formed. First, a thin top dressing of soil. Below is a deep stratum of waste stone, never used for building, which is broken up and thrown into the sea, so that another smaller isle of waste, Portland stone 400 feet high, has formed on the west end of the island. Immediately below the waste is a stratum called by the quarrymen the dirt bed, a curious grey knobbly mass like concrete. It's full of fossil fish and trees. I picked out many fine stone mussels, a stone oyster the size of a tea plate, and the bough of a tree which waved over Portland millions of years ago so convincingly, apart from its weight, that a short-sighted person examining the plainly marked knots might easily mistake it for wood. The roots of many of these trees are in the dirt bed, but the bough rise up to the stratum of waste stone. Below the dirt bed begins the strata used for building, lying in regular layers. If you would like to examine the fossils in Portland stone, you will see many in the plinth of the King Charles statue at Charing Cross. It's full of seashells. We never cut the island. We never cut the island to sea. What? Will we ever cut the island to sea level? Repeated my guide with a laugh. Not in our time, sir. We reckon there's enough stone here to last the whole world for another 5 centuries. I don't know why I'm looking up like that. Just don't believe you. I thought, in my vanity, that I knew London. I realise now that no one understands London until he has explored the significant chasms of this white island, this mother of London. How would you analyse the beauty of London? Surely it's due to the changefulness of its island stone that gathers smoke shadows on its windless side as trees gather lichen. On dull days it looms remote and grey, as if withdrawn into some region of thoughtfulness, and in the sunlight it blazes in sudden whiteness, so that you feel London has as many moods as a woman. I didn't say this, by the way. Please don't shoot the messenger. Somerset House, St Paul's, the Bank, the Royal Exchange, Mansion House, the Law Courts, the British Museum, all the Wren churches, one could extend the list to the end of the chapter, have left their caves, gullies and gaps in the Isle of Portland. What an unforgettable experience it is to walk in the mighty bed from which, at the command of Wren, St Paul's rose to stand guard on Ludgate Hill. As I walk along the dusty road of the island, which dazzle the eyes like snow in sunlight, I thought not only of the buildings which Portland had already given to London, but of the London London to be which will never. I thought not only of the buildings which Portland has already given to London, but of the London to be which we will never walk, that slumbers still in darkness in the womb of this pregnant isle. The new Bank of England came out of here. There are new streets to be cut out of the hills. I had a queer fancy that perhaps my footsteps might echo down to the London of tomorrow, stirring it from its prehistoric slumbers, giving it an uneasy nightmare of destiny. And this I thought, that never again will I look on London with quite the same eyes. Always at the back of my mind will be, as I walk the streets of London, knowledge of a white island lying out to sea like a great whale. When I see Portland stone in London, I shall think of the sea breaking against high hills. I shall hear the scream of the gulls, the suck back of pebbles on the little stony beaches, the white dust lying over the road in the little mysterious Isle of London. Great. Well, there we are. How about that? We will pause there. It hasn't got a picture of it. I think we're still on chapter 2 or chapter 3. I cannot remember. But there we are, In Search of England. How fascinating is that? St. Paul's Cathedral, Christopher Wren, Henry the... No, what was it? Somebody the third. George the Third. We had them all. We've had them all. Quickly have a look at your messages. Sorry, I was a bit mad in some of it. Weymouth, the land of the plague, not Dorchester. What's going on? Sound and vision. Eccles falling in the water. Right, it was only the PC in the police force. That's probably why I got cut off, you see. Double entry about Dorset knobs. Hard as rock. Hi, Richard, says Paul Duvel. Hello, or Duvel. Hope Worthing is okay. I moved away years ago and wish I never did. Great read, chap. Keep up the great and interesting walks. Thank you very much, Paul. Very kind of you. I'm doing my best. Struggling a bit today. It's been a funny day today. Not in a funny way. Mark Donny MacLeod says, utter tosh, and I don't mean Peter either. St. Peter in the UK. It's rubbish. It was a link that a royal line wished to perpetuate in order to claim divine right to the rule. Who the hell is St. Peter anyway? I've been trying to make nuns' farts, says Ben Reeve, also called nuns' puffs. Pan-fried, then baked round chocs pastries. At home this week, plus I made 3 lemon meringue pies. Good, wow, that sounds very nice. Cynthia Pate says, learning a lot today from reading and from the chats. Yes, you probably didn't learn anything from me, unfortunately. In a jumper, not in the northeast. 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees centigrade. Oh, 32, that's pretty good. Weirdly, Canadian... Oh, here we go. Canadian nuns' farts. You're trying to get me banned from YouTube, aren't you? I'm not reading the rest. Stone the crows. Why don't you? Do you stone the crows by feeding them cannabis seeds? Ah, very clever. Much Portland stone in London. The Cenotaph 2, plus the relatively new Bomber Command Memorial. Excellent. Portland, great place. Sunset. I must go back. We did, when I was in Dorset filming with Dave Ford and we made our series of videos, we did see Portland, but we never went there. It was surreal today, Richard. Yes, it was surreal. I think I'm just overjoyed at having the internet back, and I've lost all control of my sensibleness. And also I'm struggling to read for some reason. Oh, yes, because I'm no good at it. That's right. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this paltry effort today. Struggled to get through it. Hopefully better tomorrow. Got the Vogue show tonight. Something to miss by all accounts. But I shall be around knocking about online somewhere in the drifts of all that noughts and ones. So until we meet again, thank you so much for coming along and enjoying whatever it was I've just dished up. Till next time, bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.